Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I cut off my dad's bank cards. Now he'll have to come crawling to me just to get a slice of bread, my son announced with a victorious grin, thinking he held all the cards. But when he walked through his front door at 7 that evening, he stopped dead in his tracks. His wife sat there on the floor crying her eyes out. And she said, "Your dad just terminated our rental agreement. We've got to find somewhere else to live." Before I get into it, please hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me where you're tuning in from. The payment terminal let out 2 beeps, transaction denied. I gave it another shot, same story. The coffee shop worker gave me that sympathetic look that meant this wasn't just a technical glitch. "Sir, your card's getting declined again. Do you have another way to pay?" I dug out my backup card, the emergency one I always kept handy. "There's no way. I just used this one yesterday." She swiped it. Another beep. Her cheeks turned pink above that green work shirt. "The machine's telling me you need to call your bank. Sorry about that." I stepped out of line with a wave, letting the lady behind me get her fancy coffee drink. "Just forget the coffee. I'll figure this out." Standing outside the Peachtree coffee spot, the February air had gotten pretty chilly. The warm feeling from my morning run disappeared as I tried card after card at the cash machine. Every single screen showed the same thing: your card services are temporarily down. Please contact your bank. I felt confused, but not scared. Not at this point, anyway. I'd spent 33 years teaching law before I retired. Every problem had a logical explanation. Every mess had a solution. This had to be some simple mix-up that would get sorted out quickly. The SunTrust location opened at 9. I showed up at 9:30, still in my running gear with a sweaty shirt underneath, and went straight to the first person available. This lady was young and quick with her typing as I laid out what was happening. I need someone to explain what this third-party initiated thing actually means. Her eyes moved across the monitor and got narrower. "Someone who's connected to your account asked us to freeze everything. I'm the sole person on this account. I didn't authorize anything. Our system indicates all the right procedures got followed, Mr. Nichols." Her voice changed, understanding but firm, the sound of company policy. "Well then, your procedures have a problem. I need this fixed right now." She went through more screens, looking more concerned with each click. "We'll need to investigate this. Someone will reach out within 72 hours. 72 hours means 3 whole days with no access to my own cash." I snapped a photo of her screen before she could close it. The red flag warning was right there in plain sight. "Freeze started by authorized party, suspicious activity flag." She saw me take the picture but didn't say anything. What was done was done. Walking back to my vehicle, something Austin mentioned last month came back to me. He dropped by on a Sunday in January, acting all casual, bringing up the idea of getting emergency access to my money. "You know, just in case something happens, Dad, you're getting older. It's just being smart about things." I'd turned him down nicely, but clearly I wasn't interested in having a financial babysitter at 67. My brain worked fine, I was healthy, everything was organized. Looks like he'd figured out how to get around my refusal. I took a detour past his area on my drive back. Maple Ridge Drive, a peaceful road with big oak trees. That rental place with the blue window covers, where he and Velma had been living for 2 years, sat there quiet in the late morning sun. I sat in my car across the road for 5 minutes with the motor running, looking at the empty driveway, trying to process what this all meant, what he'd pulled, and why he did it. Back at the house, I made my coffee the old-fashioned way, using the $20 bill I always kept in my wallet for these exact situations. The afternoon dragged on. I wiped down the kitchen surfaces twice, organized the mail into neat piles, tried not to think too hard about what I knew was coming. The phone went off at exactly 7 in the evening. No hello, just Austin's voice with something I'd never heard from him before, victory mixed with meanness. "Did you try to buy something today?" I kept my voice calm and professional. "My cards won't work." His laugh came through the phone, cold and pleased, enjoying every second of this. I blocked them all, every last one. "You did what exactly?" "Now, if you want to buy even a simple loaf of bread, you'll have to come begging to me for it. Maybe now you'll figure out who's really in charge here, old-timer." I started to speak, then caught myself. All those years of courtroom experience kicked in automatically. Never react when you're angry. Get the facts first. Figure out what your opponent's got. I let the quiet hang there for 5 full seconds. "That's all you're going to say? No begging?" His voice got higher, wanting to hear me desperate, waiting for me to fall apart. "We'll find out how long you can keep that up. Give me a call when you are ready to be sensible." The call ended with a harsh click. I stayed frozen at my dining room table with the phone still at my ear, listening to that constant dial tone buzz, but I wasn't feeling despair. Something colder and clearer was taking over. The confusion from this morning completely disappeared. My filing cabinet sat against the opposite wall, the oak finish catching the evening light. I got up slowly, opened the second drawer, and pulled out a folder marked Rental Properties Horizon Management. Inside were rental agreements, tax paperwork, letters from the property management folks. I laid them out carefully on the table and found what I was looking for. Address 2847 Maple Ridge Drive, renters Orin Nichols and Velma Nichols. Rental terms month-to-month automatically renewed since 2023. Property owner Orin Nichols Trust. I pulled out the property folder from my cabinet and laid out the paperwork on my dining room table. Rental contract, payment records each month. Owner listed as Orin Nichols Trust. Austin had been living in my property for 2 years without knowing it. The paperwork sat there looking back at me from my dining room table, rental contracts, property titles, bank records. Austin had been living in my property for 2 years without realizing it. I grabbed my legal notepad and started writing, the familiar feel of the pen keeping me grounded. 3 a.m. came before I realized it. My hand was cramping from all the writing, pages filled with notes, schedules, legal references written in the shorthand I learned back in law school 40 years back. Austin's January visit asking for account access, Velma's sudden curiosity about my retirement investments last Thanksgiving, asking specific questions about dividend payments, the casual talk about making life simpler for me, about streamlining my finances, a pattern coming together like pictures developing in a darkroom. I'd spent 30 years teaching students how to spot patterns in legal cases, how to link what seemed like random facts into clear stories. This case belonged to me now. At 6, I gave up trying to sleep. My home office computer started up, the screen throwing blue light across piles of law books. I took pictures of every document with my phone positioned carefully, lighting tweaked to avoid any glare, files saved with careful organization, evidence record February 15th, and JPG, property rental Austin PDF, bank records October through February XLSX, muscle memory from hundreds of case preparations through the years. By 9, I'd downloaded half a year of bank records and got into the university library system, retired professor access I never thought I'd need like this. Georgia Law Section 1684, obtaining property by deception, Section 165-100, taking advantage of elderly persons. I marked sections with yellow highlighter, wrote notes in the margins with my neat handwriting, verified what I'd suspected during my sleepless night, recording with one party's knowledge. Georgia permitted it no questions asked. Austin's threat was recorded, legal, could be used in any courtroom across the state. I grabbed my phone and called a number I hadn't used in 5 years. Logan, this is Orin Nichols. Hope I'm not calling too early. Professor Nichols, Logan Grant's voice got warm right away, genuinely happy to hear from me. Never too early for you. What can I help you with? I'm researching a case study about financial abuse of the elderly. Could I get your thoughts on the legal procedures? Absolutely. Family law is my thing now. Thanks to your contracts class pointing me that way. Still doing you proud. Can you meet this afternoon? For you, definitely. Does 2 o'clock work? At exactly 2, I was in my office with my notes laid out in organized rows, phone on speaker. Logan's excitement hadn't faded since his law school days when he'd sat in the front row of my lecture hall. Let's say, hypothetically, I started with a casual tone. If a grown child illegally cuts off a parent's bank access, what's the right move? That's financial abuse of the elderly under Georgia law, criminal charge if you can prove it with enough evidence. What kind of documentation do you need? Recordings if they're legal where you are, bank statements showing weird activity, witness statements if you can get them. He stopped for a second, curiosity coming through in his voice. Professor, you're really diving deep into this case study. I want it to be realistic, based on real procedures. What about civil options? The parent could go after damages and restitution, but criminal charges make a stronger point about society's boundaries and deterrence. I wrote faster, filling up another page. Interesting. What if the parent also owns the property the child rents? The line went quiet for 3 seconds. Well, that's completely different leverage. Standard landlord rights kick in, termination with the right notice based on state rules. How much notice does Georgia require? 60 days for month-to-month renters. But Professor, this is getting pretty detailed for a hypothetical situation you're building. You know me in details, Logan. Being precise is important. After we finished talking, I looked at my notes. 5 pages in shorthand, the old skill still working fine after years of not using it. I copied the main points onto a clean sheet, organizing them into 3 columns with perfectly straight lines, evidence, timeline, actions. First phase, document everything, file a police report, show a clear pattern of financial interference. Second phase, give 60-day termination notice through property management, legal, clean, can't be avoided. Third phase, get evidence ready for possible criminal charges. Let Austin watch the machinery of consequences start turning. I opened my safe, the small one bolted under my desk that Austin didn't know about, and counted out $4,200 bills, emergency money saved up over the years. I went to Credit Union of Georgia, walked in with cash and ID, and had a new checking account set up in 30 minutes. Austin could block what he knew about, but he couldn't block what he didn't know existed. That evening, I called Horizon Property Management and got their after-hours service. This is Orin Nichols. I own the property at 2847 Maple Ridge Drive through my trust. The person's voice was professional and carefully neutral. Yes, Mr. Nichols, what can I help you with? I want to end the current lease. What's the process? Is there a lease violation? No violations. I'm just choosing not to continue the rental for month-to-month tenants. We need 60 days written notice to the renters. I'll come to your office tomorrow morning to file the official notice. What time do you open? 8 sharp, bring property identification and trust paperwork. I'll be there at 8. I hung up and grabbed my wall calendar. Today was February 27th. I drew a red circle around March 1st with a marker, counted ahead carefully. May 1st was a Thursday. Looks like spring cleaning's coming early this year, I thought to myself. I typed up the termination letter on my computer, double-checked Georgia landlord-tenant laws section by section, made sure every part matched the legal requirements, printed 3 copies on official letterhead, signed each one with my complete legal signature. At my dining room table, I went through my notes one last time. Control the evidence and you control the outcome. First rule I'd taught for 30 years. You wanted to show me about power, son. Well, class is now in session. I put a red circle around March 1st on my calendar. 60 days from there brings us to May 1st. The property management office opened at 8 in the morning. I'd be their very first appointment. The SunTrust building reflected the morning sunlight as I drove into the parking structure. My briefcase had everything I needed, documents, recordings, questions ready to go. Marcus Patterson would see me today whether he had an appointment or not. The receptionist's smile disappeared when I walked up to her desk at exactly 8 o'clock. Do you have a meeting scheduled with management? No, but I've got documented proof of fraud involving your bank. I can wait while you find the right person, or I can go straight to federal regulators. Her hand went to the phone right away. Let me get Mr. Patterson for you. 15 minutes later, I was sitting across from Patterson in a conference room with glass walls looking out over Peachtree Street. He was younger than I expected, early 40s, nice suit, confidence that hadn't been tested by someone like me yet. Mr. Nichols, can you tell me what your complaint is about? I laid out my documents in order across the table, visual timeline, old habit. From my trial advocacy seminars, bank statements here, freeze notice there, written timeline right in the middle. Someone froze my accounts without my permission. Your person confirmed it was a third party. Account freezes need proper paperwork. Exactly, I want to see that paperwork. I never gave consent. He pulled up my account on his tablet, scrolled through screens, frowned. I'll have to look into the request chain. You've got 48 hours before I file with the FDIC, the Federal Reserve, and Georgia's banking department. I kept my voice steady and professional, same tone I'd use teaching in lecture halls. I'm being reasonable, but I'm also a retired law professor. I know what counts as financial fraud. His confidence cracked noticeably. Let me look at this properly for context. I cut him off, pulling out my phone. This is a conversation with my son 2 days after the freeze. I hit play. Austin's voice filled the room, sharp with victory. I blocked them all, every single one. Patterson's face went white. He put down his tablet carefully. That's pretty clear. Can I get a copy of that? I'll give it to your investigators along with timestamps matching your freeze order. I stopped to let that sink in. I took a picture of your system screen showing the third-party note. Everything's documented. He stood up quickly. I need to escalate this right away. Can you give me 48 hours? I'm filing written complaints no matter what, but I'll wait 48 hours before calling regulators. I collected my documents. Insurance, Mr. Patterson. I'm sure you get it. 48 hours later, Patterson called my cell. Marcus Webb, junior account services guy, had processed a freeze request from a family member worried about elderly mental decline. No medical paperwork, no power of attorney, no verification steps followed. Just doing a favor for Austin Nichols, his buddy from college. Webb got fired that afternoon. My accounts got unfrozen within an hour. Patterson apologized over and over, offered money for the inconvenience. I turned down the cash but took copies of their internal investigation report, more evidence for my file. At 2 o'clock, I walked into Atlanta Police Department Zone 2 station with a USB drive in my jacket and copies of the bank's findings in my briefcase. Detective Rivera looked tired and skeptical until I started talking. You're filing for financial exploitation, elder financial abuse, identity fraud, and conspiracy to commit fraud. My son got a bank employee to freeze my accounts illegally. Do you have proof? I put the drive on her desk, recorded confession, bank investigation results, witness statements, written timeline of everything. It's all labeled by date and category. She plugged it into her computer and clicked through folders. Her eyebrows went up with each new file she opened. This is thorough. Most folks come in with just complaints and anger. I taught evidence law for 30 years. Old habits stick around. She took my statement, 30 minutes of detailed questions I answered precisely, gave me a case number, explained how the investigation would go, weeks or maybe months. Austin would get interviewed, bank records would get subpoenaed. I thanked her, shook hands, and left with my case number written on a card in my wallet. By 4 o'clock, I was sitting in Horizon Property Management's Buckhead office. The administrator was efficient and professional. 3 copies of the lease termination notice spread out in front of us. She looked over my trust documentation, checked my photo ID against their records. What's your reason for termination, Mr. Nichols? I'm using my rights as the property owner. No reason needed for month-to-month renters under Georgia law. She typed quickly. Understood. The tenants are, Austin and Velma Nichols. That's right. Are they related to you? That doesn't matter for the lease termination. She caught the edge in my voice and nodded fast. Of course. We'll handle this right away. I signed all 3 copies with my complete legal signature. She kept 2 and gave me 1 for my records. Notice starts today, March 2nd. Tenants need to be out by May 1st. We'll send a certified letter needing a signature within 3 business days. When will the tenants get the notification? Certified mail usually takes 5 to 7 business days to arrive, sometimes quicker. I did the math while driving home through afternoon traffic, middle of March at the earliest. Austin would spend the next 2 weeks thinking he still had leverage, still had control, still had me backed into a corner. Let him enjoy that fantasy while it lasted. At my dining room table that evening, I updated my legal pad with 2 check marks, cards working again, eviction started. The property management letter would get to Austin's place in 5 business days. He'd be watching his mail for angry letters from me, never guessing the threat was already on its way. The coffee was still warm when my phone rang. Austin's name on the screen, right on schedule. I'd been waiting for this call since the bank fixed my cards 3 days ago. No hello? Just rage? What did you do? I took a sip of my coffee and let him wait. Good morning to you too, Austin. Stop playing games. Marcus got fired. The blocks are gone. Marcus was involved in financial fraud. Actions have consequences. You're ruining people's lives. I'm protecting my own. You should have thought about consequences before blocking my accounts. The line went quiet, then his voice got lower. Dangerous. This isn't over. No, I agreed. It's not. He hung up. I saved the call recording, added it to my evidence folder, and went back to my coffee. 2 hours later, my phone started buzzing with text from Austin. You'll regret this. Then another. I'll make sure everyone knows you're not fit. Another one. You won't have $1 left when I'm done. I took screenshots of each message. 23 texts came over the next 2 days, each one angrier than the one before. That house, that pension, all of it should be mine. I saved them all, organized by time received, noting how the aggression kept building, a pattern forming, proof of harassment. On March 14th, my phone rang again. Velma this time. Dad, it's Velma. She'd never called me that before. I waited. Austin mentioned you had some confusion with your bank accounts. No confusion, deliberate fraud that's now under police investigation. Her voice changed, got sweet like syrup. Now let's not be dramatic. Sometimes when we get older, we misunderstand these things. Stop right there. I'm 67, not losing my mind. My brain works perfectly fine. Of course, I just meant we could help organize things, make them easier for you. My finances are organized. I don't need or want your concern. We're just trying to help. Don't call me again. I hung up right away and saved the recording. My phone had been automatically recording everything since Austin's first threat. Georgia's one-party consent law was coming in real handy. That afternoon, my brother Robert called. Orin, Austin got in touch, said you've been having memory problems. I closed my eyes and counted to 3. Robert, I'm in great health with all my mental abilities intact. Austin's spreading lies as payback for a legal issue between us. Legal issue? He committed financial fraud. There's a police investigation. He's trying to make me look bad ahead of time. Robert's voice got hard. He told me you accused your bank of fraud when there wasn't any, made you sound paranoid. The bank fired someone for illegally freezing my accounts when Austin asked them to. I have proof. I stopped for a second. Did he call anyone else? Your cousin Sarah, maybe Jim from your old department. I spent the next hour writing emails, polite, factual, and firm. I'm in great health. Any claims otherwise are lies. If you have concerns, call me directly. The next morning, I went to see my doctor. Dr. Chen had been treating me for 15 years and knew my medical history completely. Orin, what brings you in today? I need a mental assessment and written statement that I'm competent. She frowned. You're one of the sharpest folks I know. What's going on? My son's claiming I'm not competent. I need documentation showing otherwise. Her expression shifted to understanding. Family fight over money. Something along those lines. She ran me through the Montreal Cognitive Test. Perfect score, memory tests, problem-solving exercises, executive function checks, all normal for my age, most well above normal. She wrote a detailed letter on official letterhead. Mr. Orin Nichols shows full mental capacity, excellent memory function, and good judgment. There are no signs of dementia, mental decline, or impaired decision-making. I added it to my evidence file that evening and forwarded Austin's defamatory emails to Logan Grant, with a note adding to evidence file, thoughts on civil defamation case. Logan called within an hour. Orin, this is serious. He's claiming you're incompetent to multiple people. I have medical proof showing otherwise. Smart move. That's actionable defamation if damages happen. He stopped for a second. Are you building a civil case? I'm building leverage. Be careful. He sounds desperate. Desperate folks make mistakes, Logan. I'm counting on it. I checked the certified mail tracking for the 20th time that day. Delivery attempted March 14th. Nobody home. Tried again. March 15th. Nobody home. Tomorrow they'd leave a notice, and Austin would have to pick it up from the post office himself. He'd sign for it, open it, and find out he'd been living in my house for 2 years. I checked the tracking for the certified letter one more time. Delivery attempted yesterday and again today. Nobody home to sign. Tomorrow they'd leave a notice, and Austin would have to get it from the post office himself. Logan Grant's office looked out over downtown Atlanta from the 15th floor. I spread my evidence binder across his conference table. 3 rings, 9 tabs, 200 pages. He whistled low when he saw how organized it was. Professor, I've looked through everything. This goes way past civil matters. How far past? Criminal prosecution territory, multiple felonies under Georgia law. He flipped through tabs, stopping at the recording section. Elder exploitation under section 165-100 carries 1 to 20 years. Computer fraud for the banking manipulation. Criminal intimidation for those texts you documented. What's the likely result if charges get filed? With this evidence, convictions probable, prosecutor's dream case, everything documented, timeline clear, victim credible. He tapped the binder. Could be probation, could be prison time. Depends how aggressive the DA wants to be. I watched traffic move silently 15 floors down. I don't want him in prison. I want him to understand consequences. Then you want a plea deal with conditions, restitution, probation, community service. Logan closed the binder carefully. Prosecutors love cooperative victims with organized evidence. You're giving them an easy win. 3 days later, I delivered a copy to Detective Rivera at Zone 2. She went through it slowly, stopping at each tab section, taking notes on a yellow pad. Mr. Nichols, this binder is more complete than what our detectives usually put together. 30 years teaching evidence law, old habits that never really go away. The DA's office will love this. We're working toward formal charges now that Webb's cooperating completely as part of his plea deal. Timeline 60 to 90 days for full investigation, standard procedure, interviews, record requests, cross-checking statements. You'll be the first to know when we move forward. I spent the next week making a visual timeline on my office wall. Color-coded index cards connected with string, red for Austin's actions, blue for my responses. February 15th, cards blocked. February 17th, Austin's threat call. March 2nd, bank investigation. March 3rd, police report filed. April 15th, eviction notice sent. The pattern was clear, methodical, prosecutable. April 15th came around. Horizon Property Management handled the formal eviction notice as planned. I pictured it making its way through the postal system, certified needing signature, impossible to ignore once it arrived. The document was simple, legal, and devastating to Austin Nichols and Velma Nichols from property owner Orin Nichols Trust regarding termination of month-to-month rental agreement. Effective date May 1st, 2025. I checked the tracking number obsessively. April 16th, delivery attempted, nobody home. April 17th, tried again, nobody home. April 18th, notice left at residence. Must pick up from post office within 15 days or it gets sent back. Then nothing. No pickup, no signature, just sitting there available for pickup at North Druid Hills Post Office. 1 day passed, 2, 5, a week. I called Logan on April 23rd. The notice went out over a week ago. They're not picking it up. They might not know it's important mail. They'll figure it out soon enough. May 1st doesn't change, no matter what. You're giving them barely 2 weeks to move if they wait much longer. They had 60 days from the filing date. Their delay isn't my problem or responsibility. While organizing property files that week, I found Austin's original lease from April 2023. Page 3, Landlord Disclosure section printed clearly, Landlord Orin Nichols Family Trust managed by Horizon Property Management. Below it, Austin's signature in blue ink dated April 18th, 2023. I acknowledge receipt and understanding of all terms. He knew he'd signed knowing I owned the house, then told Velma he'd gotten a great deal through work connections, 2 years of lying to his own wife. I took a picture of that page with my phone, uploaded it to my evidence folder, labeled it Lease Acknowledgement Proof. By April 27th, the tracking still showed available for pickup. 11 days sitting at the post office. Every day that passed meant less time for him to prepare, fewer options, more pressure when reality finally hit. I felt no guilt, just cold satisfaction at the symmetry. Austin had wanted me helpless, dependent, begging. Now he'd learn exactly what helplessness felt like. That evening, I got ready for the inevitable phone call, wrote possible responses on a legal pad, expected begging, threats, manipulation attempts, practiced my tone out loud in my office. Calm, final, unmoved, each phrase precise, no emotion. Set my phone to record automatically. Tomorrow was the 28th. Something in my gut said Austin would finally get his mail. I checked the tracking one last time before bed, still waiting at the post office. 11 days now. Tomorrow was the 28th, and I had a feeling Austin would finally pick up his mail. My phone sat on the table next to my dinner plate, fully charged. I'd been waiting for the call all day, ever since the tracking showed item picked up at 6:17 p.m. The book in my hands was just a cover for waiting. The phone rang at 7:35. "Hello, Austin. Dad, please, the eviction notice. You got it? Good. We have 3 days, only 3 days to move. You had 60. You ignored certified mail for 2 weeks. I didn't know it was important." His voice got higher, panic making each word sharp. Not knowing isn't an excuse for consequences. "Please, just give us 2 more weeks. That's all we need." "No. We have nowhere to go. We can't find a place in 3 days. That's unfortunate, but not my problem. You're my father. Doesn't that mean anything?" I let the quiet hang for 5 seconds. "You should have thought about that before blocking my ability to buy food. I'll fight this eviction. I'll take you to court." "Please do. I followed Georgia law exactly. You'll lose and rack up legal fees." I kept my voice steady, almost bored. The 60-day notice was properly given. Your failure to pick it up on time doesn't change the deadline. I'll tell everyone what you're doing, throwing out your own son. After you spread lies about my mental competence, try it. See how that goes for you. You're destroying my life. No, I'm ending your free ride in my property. I stopped. Heard Velma yelling something in the background. "Why are you doing this to me?" This was the moment I'd been waiting for. "You told me I'd need to beg you for bread. Do you remember saying that?" Silence, then breathing, rough and quick. "You wanted me helpless, vulnerable, dependent on your mercy. I let each word hit separately. Now you understand how it feels." That was, I was angry. "And I'm providing education. Use these 3 days wisely. I'm your son. You were my son. Now you're a tenant whose lease has ended. I'll apologize. I'll make this right." Too late. The May 1st deadline stands. There must be something. Pack efficiently. Goodbye, Austin. I hung up before he could respond, set the phone down gently on the table. My hands were steady, no shaking, no second-guessing, just the quiet certainty that this was exactly what needed to happen. The phone rang again right away. I let it go to voicemail. Again, 5 calls in 10 minutes, each one unanswered. Then a text, "Please call me back." Another, "We can work this out." Another, "I'm begging you." I screenshot each message, saved them to my evidence folder, labeled post-eviction notice reaction. At 8:15, Velma called. I answered. "Dad, it's Velma. I asked you not to call me. Please listen. Austin made mistakes, but we need help. You called me senile, suggested I needed financial guardianship. Those weren't mistakes, Velma. Those were calculated attacks. We were just concerned. You were concerned about getting to my money. There's a difference." I heard her breathing change, getting ready for another angle. "The eviction stands. Don't contact me again." I hung up and blocked both numbers. My dinner had gotten cold. I reheated it in the microwave, ate slowly and carefully. The food tasted exactly as it should. No guilt coating my throat. No regret turning my stomach sour. Just chicken, rice, vegetables, food. At 9 o'clock, I opened my laptop and checked the property management portal. A note from the administrator. Tenant called our after-hours line at 7:47 p.m. requesting lease extension. Per your prior instructions, extension denied. Tenant reminded of May 1st deadline and consequences of staying past lease end. Perfect. I marked April 28th on my wall calendar with a red X. Below it I wrote strike delivered. May 1st was 3 days away, 72 hours for Austin and Velma to pack up 2 years of life, find temporary housing, face the reality that actions have consequences. I thought about Austin's voice on the phone, how it went from demands to begging, the moment he realized I wouldn't bend, the moment he understood he'd misjudged everything. You wanted to teach me about power, son, class concluded. I heard Velma yelling in the background before Austin hung up, something breaking, glass shattering. I set my phone down and marked the date on my calendar, April 28th, 3 days until May 1st, and they'd finally understood what consequences felt like. The moving truck in Austin's driveway looked smaller than he'd probably hoped for. May 1st had come, and I watched the sun come up, knowing he had until midnight to get out. I didn't drive by to watch it happen, no need for that kind of satisfaction. Logan called at 9 with an update from the property management company. The eviction's going smoothly. They confirmed Austin loaded the truck this morning, final walkthrough scheduled for tonight, and the criminal complaint filed with the DA yesterday. Elder Abuse Unit gave it to ADA Jennifer Palmer. She's already looking at Webb's cooperation agreement. I put down my coffee, felt the weight of what was coming. Timeline 60 days for formal charges, maybe less. This case has everything they need, documented evidence, cooperating witness, clear victim impact. By noon, I knew Austin had loaded the truck and left. A former neighbor texted, "Saw your son moving out this morning. Looked rough. Everything okay?" I didn't reply. The new apartment Austin found was in East Atlanta, 600 square feet, third-floor walk-up, $1,850 a month. I learned this from the property management's final report, not from him. First month, last month, security deposit all due up front, $5,500 total. His savings nearly wiped out in one payment. Over the next week, complete silence from Austin's side, no calls, no texts, no attempts to reach out. But Logan kept me updated about the investigation's steady progress. May 8th, Austin talked to a lawyer about challenging the eviction. David Morrison looked at the case for 2 hours, then gave his verdict. Your father followed Georgia law exactly, proper notice, correct timeline, legal grounds, no basis to challenge. Morrison also spotted the bigger problem Austin was facing, the account freezing. That's felony elder financial exploitation under Georgia Code. You need a criminal defense lawyer, not me. May 9th, Logan personally delivered my formal complaint to the Fulton County DA's office. Complete evidence package, recordings with timestamps, bank investigation findings, Marcus Webb's termination records, threatening text messages, detailed timeline of events, everything organized in a 3-ring binder, tabbed, indexed like a trial exhibit. Detective Rivera pulled the case right away, I remember Mr. Nichols. Excellent documentation when he filed the initial report. Let's bring in the bank employee for formal questioning. May 12th, Marcus Webb sat across from Rivera in an interrogation room at Atlanta PD, already fired from SunTrust. Already facing his own criminal charges, Webb had every reason to cooperate completely. Walk me through how Austin Nichols first approached you about this. Text message said his father was making bad financial decisions, needed intervention. Did you verify these claims through any official channels? No. Austin's been my friend since college. I trusted him without question. So you froze the accounts based only on Austin's word without any medical documentation or legal authority? Webb's shoulders dropped. Yes, I know I shouldn't have. I've lost my job over this mistake. I'm cooperating completely. Do you still have those text messages? All of them. I'll send everything to your email right now. Webb's phone had 23 messages from Austin over 2 weeks in February. The key piece of evidence, February 10th. Austin wrote, "Can you freeze his accounts temporarily? He's being irrational with money, making poor choices, just until he agrees to let me help manage things properly." Webb's response, "This is highly irregular, but for you I'll make it work. Give me until tomorrow." Conspiracy to commit fraud, written documentation of intent. The DA had everything needed for prosecution. May 20th, a process server climbed 3 flights of stairs to Austin's new apartment and knocked. "Austin Nichols?" "Yes." "You've been served. Have a nice day." The legal document read subpoena to appear. Criminal Investigation Case Number 185, EA347. Matter of financial exploitation complaint filed by Orin Nichols, required appearance May 28th at 10 a.m., listed status suspect. I got Logan's update that evening by phone. The investigation was moving faster than typical cases. Webb's complete cooperation made everything straightforward. A formal charge is likely filed within 3 weeks instead of the usual 2 months. How's he handling it? Logan asked carefully. I don't know. We haven't talked since April 28th. He'll probably try reaching out soon. Desperation does that. I know. I marked May 20th on my wall calendar with a red pen. Austin would appear for formal questioning in 8 days. 8 days to prepare for an interrogation he couldn't possibly survive with his lies intact. The process server's footsteps echoed down the apartment stairwell. Austin stood in his doorway, subpoena shaking in his hands, reading the word suspect over and over. I imagined Velma's voice from inside. What have you done now? Detective Rivera spread 23 screenshots across his desk, each one a text from Austin requesting the account freeze. 2 weeks after getting the subpoena, Austin had appeared for questioning, and now the investigation was entering its final phase. I got Logan's update by phone. They have everything they need. June 3rd, Rivera and ADIA Jennifer Palmer looked over the complete case file in her downtown office, 23 messages requesting the account freeze. Palmer tapped the printouts with her pen, plus 3 phone calls we confirmed through phone records, all within a 10-day period in February. Webb's cooperation makes this airtight. Defense has nothing to work with. Rivera leaned back in his chair. Think Austin will take a plea deal? Any smart lawyer will advise it strongly. This goes to trial. He's looking at significant prison time. The evidence is overwhelming. The victim, Mr. Nichols, he strike you as vengeful? Palmer shook her head slowly. Opposite, he strikes me as someone who wants justice. Not blood. His statement emphasized accountability over punishment. Word spread quietly through Atlanta's legal community that week. A colleague mentioned the case to someone who'd attended one of my evidence law seminars years ago, Orin Nichols, the evidence professor. Brilliant legal mind. If he documented this case personally, it's absolutely airtight. No special favors were granted, just proper attention in an overloaded court system. The hearing got scheduled for July instead of the usual September backlog. June 4th, Austin's employer sent official notification. Dear Mr. Nichols, we've been notified of an ongoing criminal investigation involving your conduct. Effective immediately, you're suspended without pay. Pending investigation outcome, company policy requires this action for any employee facing felony charges. But June 2nd, Velma had already left. I learned about her departure from Austin's voicemail 3 days later, though I didn't know the full details until Logan's investigator provided them. Velma had packed systematically while Austin attended a mandatory meeting with his criminal defense attorney, left a handwritten note on the kitchen counter. I can't do this anymore. You made choices that destroyed us, and I won't be pulled down with you. Don't try to find me. 3-hour drive north on I-75 to Chattanooga, parents' house, phone turned off permanently, marriage over. June 5th, 10 at night, Austin called my number again. This time he actually left a message, and the tone was different from anything before. Dad, I know you won't answer. I know what I did was wrong. I was jealous, resentful, stupid beyond measure. Velma left me, my job suspended me. I'm facing criminal charges. I've lost everything, and I deserve every bit of it. His voice broke completely, genuine sobs, not the manipulation I'd heard before. I'm not asking you to fix this. I need to hear your voice. I need you to know I understand now what I did to you. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I listened to the recording the next morning while eating breakfast, heard the brokenness, the authentic collapse, felt the complexity wash over me, pity mixed with sadness, but also firm resolve that justice had to continue its course. I waited 2 hours before calling back, let him sit with uncertainty. He answered on the first ring. Dad? I heard your message. Silence. Just ragged breathing on the other end. I believe you're sorry now, but sorry doesn't undo what you did. You tried to make me helpless, spread lies about my mental competence, threatened me repeatedly. I know. I understand that completely now. The legal system will determine appropriate consequences. That's how civilized society works. Will you testify against me if they ask? If required, yes, but I expect they'll offer you a plea deal instead. And after everything's done, his voice barely audible, can we ever have anything again? I don't know, Austin. Maybe someday, but not anytime soon. First, you need to accept full responsibility, not because I'm forcing you, because it's the right thing to do. I swear I will. Then do it through the legal process. That's the proper way to demonstrate you've learned. I hung up gently, not in anger. That same afternoon, Ada Palmer called my number directly. "Mr. Nichols, we're preparing plea deal terms for your son. Do you have any input on what you'd like to see? Accountability, formal admission of guilt on the record, restitution for costs I incurred during this ordeal, preference on prison time." "I don't need him incarcerated, Miss Palmer. I need him to understand that actions have real consequences that can't be escaped." "That's very measured of you, Mr. Nichols. I taught law for 30 years. I believe in the system working properly, not in revenge for its own sake." Logan called an hour later with additional details from his contacts. Austin's attorney, Robert Chen, had already signaled strong willingness to negotiate. The evidence was overwhelming and irrefutable. Chen had reviewed everything carefully and told Austin bluntly, "I can't beat this case. I can only negotiate the best possible outcome for you." Plea deal terms would likely include 3 years probation, 200 hours community service, full restitution of my legal costs, and formal admission of guilt in open court. No prison time if Austin cooperated fully and showed genuine remorse. Justice without destruction, accountability without vengeance, the law working as it should. I updated my personal journal that evening, wrote about the difficulty of maintaining firm boundaries with someone I'd raised, loved, taught, about the necessity of consequences even when delivering them causes pain to both parties. After I hung up, I sat at my desk for a long while. Austin's voicemail had revealed genuine remorse, perhaps arriving too late. The plea deal paperwork would arrive within 2 weeks, and then he'd face the choice, accept responsibility, or gamble everything on a trial he'd lose. The plea agreement arrived by email on June 18th, 12 pages of legal language that translated to one simple truth: Austin would admit everything. Logan called that evening to explain the terms, and I listened quietly, feeling neither victory nor defeat. On July 15th, I put on my charcoal suit and waited for Logan to drive me to the courthouse. We got to Fulton County Superior Court at 9:15. The building's marble floors and high ceilings reminded me of trials I'd watched during my teaching career, back when I analyzed legal strategy from a comfortable distance. Different experience entirely as the victim. ADA Jennifer Palmer met us outside courtroom 5C on the 3rd floor. "Mr. Nichols, we have a strong plea agreement. This should be straightforward." I nodded but said nothing. Nothing about this felt straightforward. At 9:45, Austin entered the courtroom with his attorney, Robert Chen. He looked thinner than I remembered. Older somehow, despite being only 38. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, shoulders hunched forward like he was carrying invisible weight. He glanced toward me once. Brief, desperate. I looked away, focused on the state seal behind the judge's bench. "All rise." The Honorable Judge Elizabeth Warren presiding. We stood. The judge entered, black robe flowing, expression neutral and professional. She settled into her chair, reviewed the file briefly. "Be seated." Judge Warren asked Palmer to state the charges. Case number 2025 CR 8847. The State of Georgia versus Austin James Nichols. Charges elder financial exploitation under Georgia Code 165-100. Conspiracy to commit fraud and criminal intimidation. The defendant has agreed to enter a guilty plea. The judge addressed Austin directly. "Mr. Nichols, please stand. Do you understand the charges against you?" Austin rose slowly. "Yes, Your Honor." "Has anyone forced or coerced you into this plea agreement?" "No, Your Honor. Do you understand that by pleading guilty you waive your right to trial?" "Yes, Your Honor, I understand. Are you pleading guilty because you are in fact guilty of these crimes?" A pause then. "Yes, Your Honor, I am guilty. Tell the court in your own words what you did and why." Austin's voice shook, barely audible at first. "I conspired with a bank employee to illegally freeze my father's financial accounts without authorization. My goal was to control him and force him to give me access to his money. When that failed, I threatened him repeatedly and tried to make people believe he was mentally incompetent." He stopped, swallowed hard. "I knew it was wrong. I did it because I was greedy and thought I deserved his money more than he did." "Who did you harm? My father, Orin Nichols?" Austin's voice cracked. "And I harmed myself by betraying the person who raised me and taught me better than this." Judge Warren's expression stayed carefully neutral, but I saw her eyes harden slightly. "Mr. Nichols, your actions targeted one of our most vulnerable populations. Georgia takes elder exploitation very seriously. However, you've accepted responsibility, and the victim has indicated through his statement that he doesn't seek maximum punishment. The court accepts your plea and imposes the following sentence: probation for 2 years, 200 hours of community service at organizations serving senior citizens, restitution of $15,000 to Orin Nichols payable in quarterly installments, and prohibition on independent financial transactions exceeding $500 without court approval during your probation period. Do you understand these terms? Yes, Your Honor. Do you accept them? Yes, Your Honor. Then this court finds you guilty as charged. Probation officer will meet with you immediately following these proceedings. The gavel fell, sharp crack echoing in the quiet courtroom. Marcus Webb's case followed right after a brief recess. 18 months probation, $5,000 fine, permanent ban from employment in financial services. He looked completely broken, didn't make eye contact with anyone, just waste. 2 lives damaged by greed and stupidity and poor choices compounding. During that brief recess, Austin checked his phone, his face drained of color reading something on the screen. Later, through Logan's contacts, I learned it was termination notification from TechFlow Solutions, criminal record incompatible with security clearance requirements. After final proceedings concluded as people filed slowly toward the exits, Austin stepped toward me in the aisle. Dad, can we talk for just... I raised my hand without speaking, didn't trust my voice, turned and walked toward the heavy courtroom doors. Logan followed closely, his hand briefly touching my shoulder in silent support. Behind me, I heard Chen's quiet voice, Austin, not now. Come on. Outside, July sun beat down hard on the courthouse steps. Heat shimmered off the pavement. How do you feel? Logan asked carefully. Sad, satisfied that justice was done properly, but sad it came to this point. You did what you had to do. I know, doesn't make it hurt any less. We drove back toward my house in complete silence. I stared out the window at Atlanta passing by, processing what I'd witnessed, justice achieved carefully and completely through proper legal channels. But I lost my son in the process, perhaps permanently. We drove in silence, the courthouse getting smaller in the side mirror. Logan tried to fill the quiet with practical matters, the restitution payment timeline, the sentencing orders, legal implications, but I barely heard him. Justice had been served carefully and completely, yet all I felt was the weight of knowing my son would never sit at my kitchen table again. The bank notification came on August 10th, final restitution payment deposited, case financially closed. I looked at the number, $15,000, and felt nothing about the money itself, only closure. The next morning, I called the University Development Office with an idea that had been forming since those courthouse steps. I want to set up a scholarship fund, the Elder Protection Legal Scholarship, $15,000 to start. The director sounded surprised. That's very generous, Mr. Nichols. What inspired this? Personal experience with elder financial exploitation. I helped myself through it. Now I want to help others avoid it entirely. The students who receive this will carry your values forward. That's the idea. Knowledge shared is protection multiplied. The university matched what I gave, creating a $30,000 endowment, generating yearly awards for law students studying elder rights. Something positive from something terrible. August 14th, I signed the listing agreement for 2847 Maple Ridge Drive. The realtor suggested pricing strategies to maximize profit. I don't need maximum profit. I just need it sold, and too many painful memories in that house. Austin's deception, my calculated revenge, clean break necessary. Logan had visited weeks earlier with a proposal. The law school wants you to give guest lectures on elder financial protection. Your case anonymized would be invaluable teaching material. I'd hesitated. Turn your pain into protection for others, Logan urged. That's how you win permanently. I agreed to 3 lectures, trial run. That was how I labeled the folder on my desk, even though it held more than handouts and slide notes. It held whatever came next after courtrooms, affidavits, and the quiet of a house where a son used to live. August 20th, an envelope arrived, no return address, but I recognized the handwriting. My stomach dropped before my mind even caught up. I set it on the kitchen table, centered it on the wood grain like evidence, and stared at it for an hour before opening. I made coffee and let it go cold. I washed 2 dishes that were already clean. I walked to the window 3 times and watched the same car drive past twice. The envelope never moved, but everything inside me did. Finally, I slid it open with the same letter opener I used for legal notices, because that was what this really was, a personal notice that the past wasn't finished with me yet. Dad, I've completed 80 hours of community service at a senior center, listening to elderly people's stories about their families. I understand what I took from you. I'm not asking for forgiveness I haven't earned. I just want you to know I'm different now. I'm learning. If you ever want to meet, I'll be ready. If not, I understand. I love you. Even though I showed it terribly, Austin. I read it once without breathing, then again, slower, like case analysis, marking each sentence in my head. Community service, listening, understanding. Not asking, just informing. I could hear my therapist's voice from months ago. Boundaries protect both sides, not just you. Austin's words wavered between confession and apology. But there was a humility there that had never existed when he was in the courtroom, jaw clenched, eyes hot with resentment. I set the letter back in the envelope and placed it on the counter, not in the trash, not on my nightstand, somewhere in between. That was where we lived now, somewhere in between father and stranger. I slept badly that night, dreams full of younger versions of him running across the yard with a plastic baseball bat, older versions counting stolen bills at a kitchen table I recognized too well. The next morning, I brewed fresh coffee, pulled out my stationery, and wrote carefully. I did not trust my first impulse, which was anger, or my second, which was guilt. I waited until my hands stopped shaking before I picked up the pen. Austin, I received your letter. I believe you're sincere. However, I'm not ready to meet, and I may never be ready. What you did damaged something that can't be easily repaired. I don't wish you harm. I hope you build a better life, but I don't want to be part of it. The legal matter is closed. Let the personal matter rest, Orin. I sat with those lines for a long time. I considered softening them, adding maybe someday, adding we'll see, but that would have been for his comfort, not my truth. So I left them as they were, firm but not cruel, final but not vengeful. I signed my name like I had signed countless legal documents, except this one would not be filed, indexed, or appealed. I sealed the envelope and walked it to the mailbox at the corner, past the same cracked sidewalk Austin used to ride his bike on. When I let it drop from my fingers, it felt like closing a file after a verdict. Not victorious, just necessary. I mailed it feeling sad but certain. 8 days later, life handed me a different kind of summons. August 28th, my first lecture in 3 years. University of Georgia Law School, room 204. I ironed a shirt I hadn't worn since my retirement dinner, adjusted a tie that felt strangely heavy, and printed 3 sets of notes in case technology failed. I'd expected 30 students, maybe fewer, given the elective topic. 60 showed up, standing room only, students sitting on the heater along the back wall, laptop bags piled in the aisle. The hum of whispered speculation reminded me of pre-trial chatter before a big case. The dean introduced me at the front of the room, his voice formal but warm. Professor Nichols taught here for 30 years. He's returned to share expertise in elder law and real-world application. A smattering of respectful applause followed, but what anchored me was the sight of so many young faces choosing to be in a classroom about elder abuse when they could have picked something flashier. I began. Financial exploitation happens to 1 in 10 older Americans, often by family members. Today I'll tell you about a case I know intimately. Heads lifted, pens were uncapped. I walked them through the chronology, warning signs, documentation methodology, legal strategy, outcome. I described the subtle changes first, the unusual withdrawals, the sudden pressure to sign documents, the isolating language family members sometimes use. Students took frantic notes, fingers flying on keyboards, some shaking their heads, some frowning in disbelief. I showed them sample spreadsheets, redacted bank statements, the kind of paper trail most people never create until it is too late. One raised her hand, expression a mix of outrage and curiosity. How did the victim stay so calm throughout? I leaned against the desk, letting the silence stretch just long enough. He understood that emotion without strategy fails, strategy without emotion succeeds. He grieved in private and planned in public only when necessary. Another student, a young man in the second row with a furrowed brow, asked, "Would reconciliation ever be possible?" The room quieted in a different way, not academic, but personal. I paused, genuine emotion showing despite my best efforts, forgiveness and reconciliation are different. One can forgive without allowing someone back into their life. The victim forgave the betrayal's existence, but not its consequences. He nodded slowly, like he was cataloging that distinction for his own life, not just his future clients. Another hand went up near the back. What's the most important lesson, if you had to name only one? I didn't need to think long. Documentation, evidence. Never assume family won't hurt you, but always have proof when they do. Suspicion is not paranoia when money and power change hands. It's risk management. After the lecture ended, students surrounded me in a loose semicircle, their energy buzzing with anger on behalf of people they'd never met. A young woman approached, clutching her notebook against her chest. "Professor, thank you. My grandmother faces a similar situation. This helps me know how to help her." Her voice trembled on the word grandmother. I handed her a detailed resource list I'd prepared. Hotline numbers, state agencies, sample language for powers of attorney, questions to ask a financial institution's fraud department. "Use this to start conversations," I said, "not arguments." She nodded, eyes shining. Another student asked, "Will you teach a full course on this? Maybe a clinic? Something with real cases?" I smiled. First genuine smile in months that did not feel like a mask. We'll see, but I think I have more to share. A few of them laughed softly, not at me, but with relief that I seemed human, not just a cautionary statue at the front of the room. That evening, I sat in the campus courtyard where I used to walk between classes decades ago, my briefcase at my feet, jacket folded beside me on the bench. Students crossed the quad carrying books, arguing about cases, living the intellectual life I'd once lived. Two of them passed close enough that I heard one say, "I never thought about how family could be the predator, not just strangers. The scholarship would help future lawyers, the lectures would protect future victims, the clinic the dean hinted at over coffee might become a place where students could stand beside real people on the brink of being erased by their own children. Pain deliberately transformed into protection, not a happy ending, but a meaningful one." When the bell tower chimed the hour, I sat in the courtyard as evening settled over the quad, watching students debate legal theories beneath the old oak trees, the same trees that had watched my younger self hurry to class, briefcase too big, dreams even bigger. Somewhere across town, Austin was probably finishing his warehouse shift, returning to his small apartment alone, microwaving dinner, maybe thinking about the seniors whose stories he had been forced to hear and perhaps had finally started to listen to. I wondered if he talked about me in past tense or present, if he told anyone he had a father who pressed charges and then endowed a scholarship with the settlement. I wondered, then let the thought pass without chasing it. I'd lost my son, but I'd found something else, the ability to transform betrayal into protection, pain into purpose, and one family's tragedy into lessons that might spare countless others. That was not compensation, not balance in some cosmic ledger, but it was direction. I could not rebuild what had been broken between us, but I could build guardrails for people who still had time to protect what mattered. As the sky darkened and the campus lights flickered on, I picked up my briefcase, feeling the familiar weight not of loss, but of work still ahead. If you enjoyed this story, please give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and share what you thought about this story in the comments. Your support helps more people hear stories like this and learn how to protect themselves and their families. To hear the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.